I think, kind of a good example of how the management style might actually work.
Yeah. We saw that. I mean, we kind of did. I mean, it's a small sample size, but maybe a manager like Watson, who's kind of a laid-back type of, kind of let everything come to him, and he doesn't get too riled up. I mean, that's not good for this team. This team needs somebody like Heath to kind of be like on them all the time, saying, "Get here, get there, move up, move." I mean, that type of thing.
It's possible.
And I did miss that last night. I missed seeing Heath kind of out there doing his, you know, getting mad and getting whatever. And
and I think what's interesting is how you see Adrian Heath after games. I mean, even in a win, he's negative.
Of course he is.
And so, for me, you can just imagine how a bad half dictates what he's like in the locker room.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I bet he's just like explosion. I mean, he's
a fire.
Yeah, he's a volcano, probably. And I don't think Watson's probably like that. Now, I would say the second half, they responded.
Yes. Can we go back to at halftime, because I was gonna text these guys last night, but I forgot about it. You guys seen the movie Waterboy?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so Henry Winkler, when they don't have Bobby Boucher in that final game, he's in the locker room. Guys, have any ideas? Anybody? He's kind of sitting back. I can see Watson doing that in the locker room yesterday, going, "Guys, have any ideas? Anybody have any ideas how we can win this game?" Huh?
And I don't want to disparage the guy, but I think I agree with you.
I'm sure he's a good guy,
yeah.
But maybe being the head coach of this team is not what he's meant to be.
Right. And players respond differently to all types of management styles. And I think that these players have probably gotten used to Adrian Heath's style. Yeah. Whether we like it or anyone else likes it is beside the point.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there were signs that show Adrian Heath was missed.
It was, yep.
I think so.
So, Stevens, after one loss, 2-1 now, anything to take off of that?
Yeah, I think at halftime when it was 2-0, I wrote down, is it panic mode now? Are we panicking? And I mean, the short answer is no. 3 games played on the road. They came away with 2 victories. So general feeling after, it's your first loss. We should be so lucky. We're sitting here after 3 games and we've only had 1 loss. So so the answer to that is no. I don't think it's panic mode quite yet.
What I say is you should.
And we're not trying to make excuses. I know when we're talking about Heath, we're not trying to make an excuse, but we're looking back and trying to figure out why, what changed, what could they do better. I mean, certainly it's not an excuse, but maybe it's a reason. I do like how they came back. They made a game of it after they were down 2-0.
Yep.
They really easily could have laid down. We saw that so many times last year, and just the fact that they kind of battled right to the very end, ended up losing by 1 goal. Yep. Games like this last year, they lost by 4 goals, 5 goals early on in the season. That didn't happen in this game. So I mean, if you're trying to be an optimist, I think you can look at the end of the game and say, well, there's things that this team can do now.
Yep.
Well, my closing comment on last night's game was we should celebrate the fact they won the first 2 games of the season.
Exactly.
And let's not go out of control here. They still have 6 points.
And they're not last place.
They're not last place.
In fact, they're...
And we're going to move into that. So another new thing we're going to bring to the podcast this year, guys, is after we talk about the last 2 games, we're going to go to Dave Stevens. He's going to tell us about where we're at in the standings right now and talk a little bit around the league, just briefly, and then talk about the next 2 games upcoming that we'll talk about on the next podcast. So, Dave?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I think it's a good idea to do this. Just as we sit here right now, we're halfway into match day 3. There's still 5 games left on the slate for today as we record this. But it'll be interesting to see where they stand week by week by week and how that changes. I know, and it's kind of fun to look back at. We'll graph it and you can look at their position in the standings week by week. But no, as we touched on, the Loons actually sit fourth in the table. We said they had 6 points after 3 away matches, so they're sitting in good shape. I mean, I think we all agree if this is the way they finish, we'd be extremely happy.
Yes.
But no, yeah, I think so. Yeah, they sit in 4th. They're behind Seattle, Houston, and LAFC. I think so. Looking at that, I think other than I would call the fact that Minnesota's sitting in 4th, I'd call that a surprise, especially after the victories on the road. But I think a bigger surprise might be not that Seattle's in first place, At the end of the season, if that's the case, not a shocker, but Seattle's a team that's been notorious for starting slow. Well, they've done anything but start slow. In fact, they're in first because they have 9 points. They have 3 victories. One came against FC Cincinnati, but they're looking very strong regardless. I guess, looking at the table, is there maybe another surprise or what's going to change as we talk about it? I think, Sporting KC actually sitting in 8th out of the playoffs as we speak right now. I don't think that's not going to stay that way. That's not going to last too much longer. They're starting to kind of get their form. And then Real Salt Lake, they're actually in that 7th and final spot. We touched on it, but there's 7 playoff spots this year in each conference. However, if you look at Real Salt Lake, they might be fading. I don't know if you watched any of the game last night, but they actually ended up losing 5-0 against DC United. Wayne Rooney had a hat trick. And not the way you want to finish a game. They actually finished with 9 players. So
what? I didn't see that.
Yeah, Rooney completed his hat trick, and but at that point, Real Salt Lake was down to 10 players. But then, another red card.
Wheels fell off.
Wheels fell off. Another red card. They finished with 9. So. So LA Galaxy with their victory against the Loons, actually they're sitting there at 6 points with 2 victories as well. Even though they FC Dallas, who were sitting in 6th, they last week had beat LA Galaxy. But here come the Galaxy. We'll see. And I think a lot of that Galaxy's fate, and I think they were your pick to win the conference, weren't they?
They were.
So, and that very well could be the case. We'll see when Ibrahimovic comes back, Al-Sadrini.
It all depends.
So, and then if we're going to talk about the table here, the other things I want to point, and I pointed out earlier, I don't see a lot changing at the bottom. Vancouver and San Jose sit at the bottom with no points.
They suck.
Followed by Portland and Colorado with 1 point. So
I would say Portland's kind of a shocker.
That they only have the 1. Yeah. So there's a little bit of surprises here. I think I think the volatility of the standings after 3 weeks it's a little high because things are going to change. Yeah. Looking at it, teams are going to shift in and out. Be below that 7th place line, but we'll just have to see how it goes. But and then going over to the East real quick, there's a couple surprises for me here. DC United, I mentioned their 5-0 victory over Real Salt Lake. They're sitting on top with 7 points tied and 3 games played. So I should point out there are a few teams that haven't played the full 3 games yet. But DC United, Columbus, Montreal, and the Red Bulls are in 4th. And I think the surprise there is Montreal.
Yeah.
The fact that they're playing very well. They're looking pretty good.
I interject a little bit, Dave. I think the surprise in the East is the fact that Atlanta.
Well, I was going to bring that up as I got further down.
They play today, so.
Yeah.
They do play today, but that's one of the scores as we look back towards last week that kind of stands out. Atlanta, they're sitting with 1 victory. No victories, 1 draw. They have 1 point. Yet to play today, of course.
And of course, they played in the. What are they playing in?
The Champions League.
The Champions League.
Yeah. So you could argue they were a little tired, a little.
And they have a stretch. They have a new manager too,
and they haven't experienced that playing in the Champions League. They have more matches to deal with, more to play. But the one thing about that was they FC Cincinnati, who also sit with 1 point. But FC Cincinnati got their first point in Atlanta.
Exactly right.
In hostile territory.
Which is crazy.
And that happened last week. So that was it was a late goal, too. It was a beautiful goal, but they tied it up. And you thought Atlanta was just going to take off at home. They had Martinez had an early goal, and you thought, here they go. But no, they credit to FC Cincinnati. They held in there and got their first point. So that's something to look at. Going forward, so
we have the next 2 weeks here, Dave. We've got
So
next week is what?
Next week we have a bye
week.
So which is good because actually, the next game I'll mention the U.S. plays Ecuador on Tuesday because it's international call-ups this week, and which is a good thing. This bye happens this coming week because the Loons have a total of, I believe, 5 players called up.
Yeah, Schuler, Gregus, Calvo, Boxel, and
Romario Ibarra. Metnier. Yeah. So that's 5. Yeah. So that bye happens at the perfect time, and we've mentioned this before the pod, but the MLS teams do have some say in when they want their bye. So obviously, with 5 players called up for international duty, it would make sense to request a bye week during these international call-up weeks. So the downside, I guess, is you might ask, why wouldn't all the teams, favor these dates? Well, the downside is it's going to mean a busier schedule as we get into the summer. You're going to see more Wednesday, Saturday type weeks.
Yeah, I saw that on our scheduling.
The 3 games in 10 days, we're going to see that a few times, and that's just because of the condensed schedule this year.
Yep.
And like I said, when you decide to take your buys. So
right, but 5 players, and they're all starters.
Yep.
And 3 of them are on the back line.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that we've got a bye this week is
Thank God.
phenomenal.
Thank God.
I mean, it would have been, you would say it would have been Manly coming back.
Uh-huh.
It would have been, we're lucky because we would have had Kalman.
Yeah,
who is a very good center back.
Yeah.
But then we would have had Gasper, probably. I mean, maybe Miller on the left. So, yeah, I mean,
would have been bad.
Not to mention the fact that we lose Gregus up in front, so we would have had probably Schuler switch to the middle, which might have been okay, actually, I guess. This bye was a really good time. Yeah.
So we have a bye this week. Who do we have in 2 weeks?
Yeah, so I guess it would be 2 weeks as of yesterday. They're on the road again. The 4th of 5 road games. They're out in New England to take on the Revolution. And if you want to scout, the Revolution actually play Toronto tonight.
Okay.
So we'll see how they do. But
and what are they doing right now?
They haven't looked good recently. I know they lost their last game. They have 1 point in their 2 played.
Okay.
They had a kind of an ugly looking loss last week. They haven't looked sharp. That was my thoughts last week when I watched them play last. Was they aren't looking sharp. It'll be interesting to see what they do tonight against Toronto. But so it's not the most daunting game. But again, we talked about how difficult it is to win on the road. So that'll be no different.
I mean, that was my 3rd victory in my estimated count.
I had them at 7 points after 5 games, which is still a possibility. But I think I had them drawing Vancouver, beating San Jose, losing to Galaxy, beating the Revs, and losing to the Red Bulls. So so it's New England, and then I just mentioned it. Their 5th and final road game before they open up Allianz on the 13th of April is a visit to New York to take on the Red Bulls on the 6th of April.
Yeah, and we'll get into that match in 2 weeks in our next podcast, because I think that'll be, depending on what happens in the England game, that'll kind of say how our points are going to be coming into Allianz Field.
Yep.
But I think at this point we can all feel good about 6 points.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
So, without doubt.
With that said, guys, I think we're going to take a little break here. We're going to come back after the break. We're going to talk a little FC Madison.
Yep.
We're going to talk some other stuff, Allianz Field stuff, our next podcasts, and some mob talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little mob talk.
You got to have Mafia.
You got to have Mafia talk for our listeners who aren't soccer fans. You can just fast forward to the end of the podcast. We can talk about Mafia.
Yeah.
So,
of course, they should have been told that at the beginning. But
well, I made them listen to all this stuff, though.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll become soccer fans because of it.
Yeah.
So we'll be back here from 56 Brewing in a couple minutes. Back, everybody, at 56 Brewing in Northeast Minneapolis. I want to give a shout out again to Tyler for letting us come out here, and Danielle, who has been our beer tender. Before that, I will say that a little small story. Before the podcast started, they were having problems with their speaker system here, and we kind of helped. I didn't really help out, but Dave and Dave did.
It was mainly David who helped.
Yeah, help them out with the speaker system, and
one of the random times that my knowledge of sound equipment actually comes in handy.
Yeah,
I was able to verify that the Bluetooth was indeed connected, and that part of it was working.
Job.
But once we got to the mixing, I was a little bit out of my element.
I didn't mention this at the beginning, but 56 Brewing has been available in stores for a while now. I've had their beer before in stores. They're in cans in stores. I'm actually drinking their Northeast Nectar, which is the honey wheat ale, which I've had in cans from your local liquor store. And it's a honey wheat ale. I mean, there's nothing more to say about it. It's good. It's poundable. I like it.
Yeah.
What'd you guys end up getting again?
I